Title: From Humble Farmer to Millionaire. The journey of a billion lights danced in the darkness, and the townsfolk's hushed rumors spoke of an ancient curse that no one dared to challenge. Each strange occurrence piled upon the last, weaving a tangled web of mystery that pulled the reader deeper into the story, craving to know what sinister forces were at play. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important alert. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button down below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And since you're here, drop that powerful like that helps me so much with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love meeting every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. If you like stories about farmers, about everyday life on the farm, and want to know what really happens in the daily lives of the biggest farmers in the world, the hidden stories of the richest owners, and the secrets of the farm girls that the media doesn't reveal, check out our virtual book with the most famous and secret stories from the farm. Click on the first link in the video comments and get yours now. The air thickened as the flickering lights cast ominous shadows that danced across the walls. Emily stood in the center of the dimly lit room, heart pounding, each beat sounding like a drum roll for an unpredictable climax. The whispers from the townsfolk echoed in her mind. Cursed land, cursed family. She had always dismissed them, thinking fear was a poison that corrupted the truth. But now, those whispers felt alive, wrapping around her like a vine, squeezing tighter. Suddenly, a loud crash pierced the stillness, jolting her to the core. It came from the basement, from where she had always felt a pull, a dark, haunting gravity she could never escape. Mustering her courage, she moved toward the creaky door. Her trembling hand gripped the cold handle. The air felt electric, charged with the unknown. She descended the stairs, each step a struggle against the tightness in her chest. The basement was even darker than she'd imagined, shadows pooling like ink. Tiny beams of moonlight filtered through cracks, guiding her deeper into the abyss of the unknown. And then she saw it, an old wooden chest standing in stark contrast to the gloom. It beckoned her. As she approached, whispers surged in her ears, pushing her forward. "Open it," they urged, 1,000 voices mingling into one chilling chorus. With shaking fingers, Emily lifted the heavy lid. It creaked open, revealing dusty old photographs and letters that had yellowed with time. But there was something much more shocking underneath. A glimmering pile of gold coins, their brilliance stark against the decay. Her eyes widened, thoughts racing. All those years of struggle, all those sacrifices her family had made for this land, and here lay untold wealth. A lump formed in her throat as emotions swirled within her. Joy? Despair? Questions abounded. Where had it come from? How? Long had it been hidden, but the moment turned cold and dark. She spotted a photo peeking out from beneath the coins. It was of a man she recognized. Her heart dropped as recognition washed over her like ice water. It was Samuel, her late father, but with someone she thought she'd never see again. Her estranged brother Mark, the brother who had vanished years ago after a stupid argument over inheritance. How could he have known about this? The air felt heavy, like a storm was brewing inside her. Secrets slipped through the cracks of her mind. The tension with her family, the endless struggle of farm life, the tension in the air whenever Mark's name was mentioned. It all spun around her until she gasped. A sudden movement caught her eye. From the shadows emerged a figure, a woman shrouded in darkness, face veiled. Emily's heart raced even faster. "You shouldn't have come here," the woman hissed, each word soaked in desperation. A chill ran through Emily, her instinct screaming that she was in danger. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling, fear tightening her throat. "You don't know. You've been lied to." The weight of the words slammed into her like a freight train, unraveling everything she understood about her family, the farm, and the very land she had fought to protect. The woman stepped forward into a beam of light, revealing startling features. It was a younger version of her mother. "Emily, I've waited long enough. You have to choose." Choose? The world around her spun violently, her breath quickening. She stood there, caught in a web of family secrets and a legacy she had never fathomed. What choice awaited her? And what truth lay buried along with the riches? The darkness beckoned, and she had no idea how deep it truly went. Emily stood frozen as the woman's voice echoed, heavy with urgency. "You have to choose." The words wrapped around her chest, squeezing tighter. Her heart pounded, a drum of panic reverberating in her ears. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. "Choose what? What do you mean?" she managed, her voice barely a whisper. The woman's eyes, those unmistakably familiar eyes, shone with an intensity that sent a shiver down Emily's spine. "Between the wealth and the truth," she replied, each word a dagger that struck deep. "Your father's sins have haunted this land. The riches are tied to a curse, a price you're meant to pay for your family's transgressions." Emily shook her head, confusion swirling around her like thick fog. "What sins?" "My father worked hard. He loved this farm." But doubt crept in, mixing with her fear. What if there was more? What if the stories she dismissed held weight? "Emily, listen, there's more at stake than just money." The woman stepped closer, urgency etched into her features. "There's something you don't know about Mark, something you're meant to find out. He'd already discovered it before." "Before what?" Suddenly, the ground trembled. A low rumble that seemed to rise from the very bones of the earth. The wooden chest rattled violently, sending the coins clattering. Emily stumbled back, but the woman stood rooted. "No!" she shouted, panic rising like bile in her throat. "We have to." But the basement shook again, harder this time, and a deafening crash echoed from above. The house shuddered, and the shadows danced wildly as if alive. Dust spewed from the ceiling, coating the air in a choking haze. And then, with a violent crack, a support beam gave way. "Run!" The woman's plea snapped through the chaos, raw with desperation. As Emily turned to flee, a blinding light flared around her, consuming the room in brightness. Her heart raced. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The world spun as she stumbled upwards, desperate to escape. Bursting through the door, she skittered into the kitchen, but the light followed. It wrapped around her, pulling her back toward the basement. Frantic, she grasped onto the kitchen counter, her mind racing in panic, but the light began to fade. She caught a glimpse of the woman, her face twisting in fear that mirrored her own, and then silence. With the fading light came an eerie calm, a heavy, suffocating silence that enveloped the aftermath of the chaos. Emily whipped around, her pulse hammering. What just happened? Where was the woman? And then, sitting on the floor beside the table, she saw her. Mark, her brother, alive, staring blankly into the space around him. Confusion twisted her gut. "Mark, how are you here?" He turned slowly, eyes wide, as if awakening from a deep slumber. I was looking for... I must tell you the truth." Each word dripped with a weight that made her stomach churn. This wasn't just a reunion, it was a reckoning. "What truth?" she asked, dread spilling over as a dark premonition shadowed her heart. His lips parted, blood draining from his face. "Emily, you don't understand. Everything you believe is a lie. Our father, he wasn't who you think he was." Before she could respond, the basement door flew open, swinging with an eerie creak. From the darkness, shadows stretched out, engulfing the light. Someone was coming. The world spun again, tightening around Emily like a vice. What lay hidden in the shadows? What had been concealed for so long? Mark's haunted expression echoed in her mind. What if the real curse was about to be unleashed? She was standing at the brink, and the choice ahead was more terrifying than she could have ever imagined. As Emily stood above Mark, her heart raced, pounding against her chest like a trapped bird. The air was thick with unspoken truths, her mind whirling with dread. "What do you mean?" she managed, trying to hold on to the threads of sanity. Mark's face was pale, like a figure pulled from shadows. "You have to listen. Our father, he was involved with something dark. A deal he made, long ago. Something that tied our family to this land, to its curse," he breathed, his voice shaky. Before she could process the enormity of his words, the basement door burst open with a bang. Emily whipped around, and her lungs tightened as the figure stepped into view. It was a man, his face obscured, his presence oozing danger. Darkness seemed to drip from him, shadows swirling as he moved. "Mark, you shouldn't have come back," the man growled, his voice gravelly, slicing through the tension like a knife. Fear surged within Emily, chilling her to the bone. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice shaking but firm. He stepped closer, revealing a familiar smirk that made her stomach drop. "You remember me, Emily. It's been a long time." Recognition struck like lightning. "James?" Her breath caught in disbelief. James, her family's former friend, someone she never expected to see again after all the chaos before he left. "Ah, so you do remember," he chuckled darkly. "I've kept tabs. And you've opened the Pandora's box, little sis." The words hit her hard, confusion swelling like a storm. "What are you talking about? You aren't family," he scoffed. "You think blood means anything? Our father played with fire, and it left us all scorched." Mark moved, a desperate urgency flooding his voice. "James, stop! You don't understand the truth." "The truth?" James spat, recoiling as if the word tasted bitter. "What truth? That he made a pact with something far beyond our understanding? Something connected to this land? Listen, Emily, those coins, those secrets, they're a burden, not a gift." The ground trembled again beneath them. Emily's instinct screamed at her to run, to leave this chaos behind. But her heart held her there, tethered by the web of secrets tightening around her. What did father do? Before either could answer, a deafening crash echoed from the kitchen. Emily felt the house shake, a violent tremor that sent them sprawling. The floor split open, revealing dark, swirling shadows. Panic flooded her system. "No!" Mark shouted, reaching for her hand. But Emily was paralyzed, staring at the abyss opening before her. "I won't be taken!" she screamed, her voice breaking. But then she caught a glimpse, a vision of the past, like a movie playing in her mind. It wasn't just wealth that father had hidden. It was something cursed, something linked to the land. A sinister bargain that had cost their family everything. "Emily!" Mark's voice pierced through her thoughts. "You need to decide." Decide what? Before she could grasp the weight of his words, James lunged forward, grabbing her shoulders. "Don't you get it? The only way to break the curse is to return what was taken." Her mind spun, dread sinking deep into her bones. "Return what?" Suddenly the shadows surged upward, a mass of darkness that seemed alive. Whispers echoed through the air, cruel and taunting. "You open the door. It's too late." At that moment, a piercing scream erupted from the shadows. Emily's breath hitched as a figure emerged. A woman, distorted by the darkness, her eyes wild with anguish. "Emily!" she screamed, her voice a haunting wail that cut through the chaos. Recognition hit her like a wave. "Mom?" Tears rushed to Emily's eyes. But before she could process the impossibility, the woman lunged toward her, arms outstretched. "You mustn't stay here. Your father never meant for this to happen." Everything shifted. Suddenly, Emily felt the ground giving way beneath her. She was falling into darkness, into a truth she had never sought. "Emily!" Mark's shout faded into nothing. And then, silence. A deafening silence that swallowed the light whole. What had she chosen? What truths lay hidden in the darkness? The shadows closed in, and Emily's scream echoed in the void, unanswered. Emily fell, the world spinning around her like a chaotic storm. Shadows clawed at her, darkness swallowing her whole. But just when the abyss was about to claim her, something snapped. A bright flash erupted, blinding her. In that moment, time felt frozen, as if the universe held its breath. And then the darkness pulled away. She gasped as she landed, not in a void, but on solid ground. Confused, she blinked, taking in her surroundings. She was back in the farmhouse, in the living room. The walls, once cracked and peeling, looked pristine. Sunlight flooded in, illuminating each corner. It felt like a strange mirage. Was it a dream? Emily stumbled to her feet, heart racing. What just happened? But then she saw them. Mark, standing at the other end of the room, his face full of shock. And beside him, James, still looming with an intensity that made her uneasy. They looked different, too. Younger. Almost as if they'd stepped out of a memory. "Emily," Mark breathed, his eyes wide. "You're back!" Back? The word hung in the air, thick as fog. "What do you mean, back? Where are we?" James stepped forward, a strange glint in his eye. "This is the day before it all went wrong. The day before. Your father made the deal." Panic and confusion surged within her. "The deal? What deal?" "Everything is about to change," Mark interjected, urgency in his voice. "We can stop it. That's why you're here." Emily's head spun. "You can't mean—" She clutched her head, feeling the weight of everything crashing down. The secrets, the curses, they all felt far too heavy to bear. "What do I need to do?" As if on cue, a soft humming filled the air, low and haunting. The room shivered. The walls began to pulse as if they were alive. Shadows curled around the edges, encircling them. Emily's breath hitched. "Don't listen to it!" James shouted, breaking the tension. "Focus! We can rewrite history!" She echoed the word, heart pounding. The thought was wild, unfathomable. But could they alter the past? Yes. Mark reached for her hand. "Together, we can protect Mom. We can end this." Suddenly a scream pierced the silence. A woman's voice, shrill and agonizing, echoed through the air. Emily's stomach dropped. "Mom?" The very walls seemed to tremble at her recognition. "Find her! We need to protect her!" Mark urged, stepping closer. But then everything shifted again. A blinding red light exploded, engulfing the room. Emily shielded her eyes, and her heart raced. When the light faded, they stood not just in the farmhouse, but in the past. Her family gathered around the very kitchen table where secrets had festered. The figures looked real, alive. She could hear her mother's laughter, her father's voice, tense but familiar. "What's happening?" she whispered, gripped by fear and uncertainty. "It's now or never," James barked, pulling her forward. Suddenly, a figure broke through the door. Emily! It was her mother, but different, young and vibrant, yet holding an unshielded fear in her eyes. "Oh no, you shouldn't be here," the woman gasped, spotting the shadows creeping in behind them. "Mom, listen!" Emily shouted, desperation igniting her words. "You need to leave." Before, everything twisted, and in the midst of the chaos, Emily caught a glimpse of a dagger glinting in her father's hand. A pulse of recognition slammed into her. He was the one making the deal. Before she could discern more, the shadows lunged, ruthless and feral. They surrounded her mother, clawing at her until she screamed. "Stop!" Emily yelled, but the echoes were lost in the chaos. In a heartbeat, a dark figure emerged from the shadows, its eyes locking onto hers. And just like that, the world shattered. Emily's heart dropped, the realization crashing over her like ice water. The figure was familiar. Someone she never thought would betray her. The one who had pulled the strings from the start. Her mother. What? How? Her voice trembled, the truth scorching like fire, turning everything she believed upside down. And in that shocking moment, as her mother's smile twisted into something darker, Emily realized the curse wasn't just about the land. It was about betrayal woven deep within their family. And the choice she had fought was for her brother was actually a choice between darkness and light. What lay ahead? She felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, knowing that everything was about to change in ways she couldn't yet understand. Emily stood frozen, shock coursing through her like ice. Her mother's smile, twisted and dark, sent chills down her spine. "You've come back at the wrong time, dear," the woman said softly, her voice sweet yet sinister. "You don't know the chaos you've unleashed." "What's happening?" Emily breathed, her heart racing like a runaway horse. Mark reached for her, his eyes wide with alarm. "Get away from her!" he shouted, stepping in front of Emily. James laughed, a cruel sound that echoed in the suddenly oppressive air. "You don't get it, Mark. This isn't just about you anymore." Everything felt like it was in free fall. Shadows swirled, creeping closer, making Emily's skin crawl. The room bent, as if the house itself was tightening around her. "Mom, stop!" Emily cried, desperation tightening her chest. "What do you mean, chaos?" Her mother's face flickered for a moment, revealing a glimmer of something. Fear? Regret? But it disappeared in an instant, replaced by a cold smile. "You were never meant to know this, Emily. It's not just your father's curse that binds us. It's a legacy larger than any of us." "Legacy?" Emily's voice quivered, dread pooling in her stomach. "What kind of legacy?" Suddenly, a flash of pain shot through her mind. Memories twisting and bending like a twisted tree. The truth was closer than she thought. "Let her go!" Mark cried, his voice cracking. But the shadows only laughed, whispering secrets that clawed at the edges of Emily's mind. A dark power surged, rolling like thunder inside her. Then it happened. The walls shook violently. A scream whipped through the air. A gasp from her mother. A cry of agony that shattered everything they knew. The shadows twisted, writhing like serpents, before solidifying into something horrifying. A figure emerged, cloaked in darkness, ambiguity swirling around him like smoke. It was her father, but he looked different. No longer the man she'd loved, the kind figure she remembered. This man was twisted, consumed by shadows, a harbinger of destruction. "Emily," he growled, voice a low rumble that vibrated through her skin. "You've awakened what was meant to stay buried." "No!" Emily shouted, trembling hands shooting up in defense. "You're not my father!" His laugh was hollow, echoing off the walls. "Am I? Or perhaps I'm everything you feared." He took a threatening step forward, and the air thickened, palpable with dread. "Your mother and I made choices, sacrifices. We were bound to this land, and you, my dear, are part of that bond." Emily's heart raced. The weight of the truth pressed against her, threatening to crush her spirit. "What sacrifices? What did you do?" Her voice faltered as pieces began to click. Tales of the cursed land, her father's whispers at night, the fear in her mother's eyes, they all came rushing back. Then As if the ground beneath them couldn't hold anymore, the floor cracked open in a blinding flash. The shadows became a whirlpool, sucking in everything around them. Mark screamed, but the sound faded to nothing as Emily felt herself getting pulled into the abyss. "Emily!" Mark's voice pierced through the chaos, snapping her back. "Fight it! You have to fight!" But just when she thought she could reach back, a blinding light erupted, engulfing everything once more. And then she fell. Just before the darkness closed around her, she heard a voice, familiar yet foreign, echoing through the void. "It's you, Emily. You are the key and the curse." With a final desperate gasp, she plunged into silence. And when the world began to reshape around her, a thought formed in the corners of her mind. If it was true, if she was the curse, what did that make her family? And as she felt the weight of the shadows chasing her, a chilling question loomed. What if their greatest enemy had always been her, as Emily felt the darkness closing around her? A sudden jolt pulled her from the abyss, and she landed, breathless, in an unfamiliar place. The air crackled with tension, swirling with emotions she couldn't name. She looked around, disoriented. Everything felt surreal, like a dream gone wrong. And then she saw him, a figure standing beneath a tree, shrouded in shadow, bathed in an eerie glow. He looked familiar. No, it couldn't be. "Dad?" she gasped, taking a hesitant step forward. There was a vulnerability in his gaze that made her heart clench. "Emily," he whispered, voice trembling, "you have to listen to me." What do you mean? You were—" The words caught in her throat. There were so many questions, but all she felt was confusion tightening around her chest. The air thickened with a haunting silence as her father took a step closer. The familiar warmth she once knew felt miles away. "I made a terrible mistake," he continued, the weight of his words pressing down on her. "The curse, the darkness, it's all connected to me." "You?" Emily's voice cracked. "But how? What did you do?" "It was a choice." His hands trembled as he spoke. "I thought it was for the family, to protect you all, but it wasn't." Before she could process his words, another figure appeared, emerging from behind her father. It was her mother, but younger. Hope surged for just a moment. Then reality settled in. This was the moment before everything shattered. "Emily!" her mother shouted, rushing forward, eyes wide with panic. "You can't be here. You need to go back." Confusion swept through Emily like a tidal wave. "Why? What's happening? What did you do?" Her mother's expression twisted, anger mixed with fear. "Your father's pact. It was with the darkness itself. It binds us all." The ground trembled beneath them, and shadows stretched toward her, reaching hungrily. Emily fought the wave of fear. "What pact?" She screamed it, demanding answers. But before anyone could respond, the world shattered. A crack echoed. A blinding light erupted from the sky. It seemed to pulse with raw energy. Emily shielded her eyes, panic surging in her chest. "No!" As the light enveloped her, She felt a sudden, fierce tug. In an instant, everything shifted. The brightness faded, and she found herself standing in a different world entirely. Colors warped, the air thick with fog, shapes twisted and elongated, shadows moving like they had a mind of their own. And then it hit her. A revelation ripping through her like thunder. Wait! I'm not just part of this curse. I'm the anchor. It was. A truth that slammed into her, turning her insides. A huge weight landed on her shoulders. No! Mark shouted, stepping forward. And suddenly Emily understood everything. His urgency, his fear. If you're the anchor, Emily, then your choices could unleash the true power of the curse. What does that mean? Her heart raced. The shadows crept closer, whispering secrets that felt unbearable. Emily, you need to choose. Mark's voice was desperate, filled with a pain that cut deep. But the concrete truth was right there, slapping her in the face. What if everything she thought she knew was a lie? What if her family, her very existence, was a shadow of something far darker? It all swirled, a chaotic dance of emotions. You have to choose quickly, Mark insisted, his own eyes reflecting her fear. And then, in a shocking twist that left her reeling, the darkness pulled back, revealing something hidden behind it. A mirror. But it wasn't just glass. It pulsated with life, reflecting not just her image, but every secret that had ever been kept from her. Her heart raced. What lay within? What reflection was staring back? The shadows whispered her fears, and in that moment, fragmented memories collided with reality. Emily! Her mother screamed, but it was too late. A surge of power pushed her toward the mirror, the whispers intensifying. Don't look! But she was already captivated, overwhelmed by what she was about to uncover. The air crackled with energy, and at that moment, she realized whatever happened next would change everything. What truth would she find in that mirror? Would it shatter her family, her very soul, forever? Emily stood before the mirror, the vibrant colors swirling within it like a storm about to break. The shadows whispered louder, clawing at her thoughts, desperate to pull her into the chaos. She took a breath, her heart racing, eyes locked on her reflection. This was the moment. This was her chance. But as she reached out towards the glass, a sudden rush of cold air swept through the room. The mirror rippled, distorting her image, and an unbearable sensation pressed down on her chest. Fear clawed at her throat. Emily, don't! Mark's voice cut through her focus, but it was too late. The glass exploded outward, fragments shimmering like stars, and she felt the energy surge. Time twisted and warped. In a blinding flash, Emily was thrown backward, colliding against the wall. Pain shot through her, but just as quickly it faded, replaced by a haunting silence. The mirror shards floated like snowflakes, sparkling in the air, and she struggled to get her bearings. Emily, are you okay? Mark's face loomed over her, concern etched deeply in his features. He reached for her, but something was wrong. She blinked, trying to shake off the dizziness. In the gleaming shards scattered across the floor, she caught a glimpse of something behind her brother. It flickered like a flame, a dark shape with glowing eyes. "What is that?" she gasped, fear spiking. Without warning, the shadows surged from the corners, wrapping around her mother and father, pulling them into the light that the mirror emitted. Emily felt vertigo, her heart thumping furiously. "No!" she screamed, lunging toward her family. Then, right there, in the swirling chaos, she saw transformation. Her mother's face contorted, her features alternating between sorrow and something much darker. A shadowy hand reached down through the light. "Emily, join me." "What?" The words slipped from her lips, too bewildered to make sense of it. As she stepped back, every instinct screaming to flee, a roar erupted from within the shadows. They twisted with fury, and the darkness began to retreat from her family, revealing a horrific sight. Her mother, the vessel for something monstrous, stood at the brink of becoming something else entirely. "No, it can't be!" Mark shouted, his eyes wide with horror. A new voice broke through the tension, a voice that was chillingly familiar. "You see, Emily, the curse was never an anchor. It was a bond, a connection that runs deeper than blood." "No!" Emily gasped, eyes darting, confusion swirling in her mind. "What do you mean?" "It means," James stepped into the fray, every word a weapon, "that your mother was never just your mother. She's part of it, part of the darkness." Everything clicked. Every moment led to this, a storm brewing, ready to break, and she was at the heart of it. The weight of betrayal settled heavily on her shoulders. But before she could react, the shadow shot forward, seizing her mother and pulling her deeper into the darkness. "Mom!" Emily screamed, her chest tight with panic. But the scene shifted again. Light burst from the fracture, blinding them all. As it cleared, Emily staggered, her breath hitching. She saw her mother standing tall, at the center of swirling shadows, smiling. No longer the frightened woman she recognized. "Emily, my darling, I have waited so long for this moment." Her mother's voice was sweet, syrupy, but laced with something sinister. "You finally come home." With trembling hands, Emily felt an intense pull toward her mother. It was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. "No," she cried, panic coursing through her veins. But the darkness whispered promises, weaving through her thoughts, and the truth began to twist like a knife in her gut. Her mother had never been saving her. She had been waiting, waiting for Emily to embrace the curse that they shared. "Join me, Emily. Together we can claim what is rightfully ours." In that moment, as the shadows swirled and clawed at her, Emily felt the chilling grip of reality. Everything she'd thought she knew was shattered. Trust, love, the very foundation of her family. Everything was built on lies, and now it all threatened to swallow her whole. "Mom, no!" she choked out, but deep down the question loomed. Could she really escape the legacy that was hers alone to bear? Would she embrace the darkness or fight against a truth too devastating to accept? The choice pulsed in the air, weighty and suffocating, as the world spun into chaos once more. As Emily stood, the weight of her mother's words pressed down like a stone. Her heart raced, every beat like a countdown to some unknown doom. She could feel Mark's anxious presence beside her, urging her to react. to break the spell that held them all captive. "Emily, don't let her pull you in." Mark's voice was frantic, filled with desperation, but the shadows flickered, enticing, almost beckoning her forward. "Don't you see, Emily? Your destiny is here. It's always been here," her mother's voice sang sweetly, the shadows swirling around her like a dark halo. "You need to embrace it." "No!" Emily screamed, forcing her feet to stay grounded. Blood pounded in her ears, a war drum that filled her with both terror and determination. She couldn't back down now. But the room began to shift again, shadows twisting wickedly, threatening to snatch away that tiny spark of resistance. Suddenly, the very air crackled. A pulse of energy surged through the room. Not just darkness, but something lighter. Different? A ripping sound echoed as a flash illuminated the space, and the shadows recoiled, hissing like burnt paper. Then, everything shifted. The mirror shattered in a violent explosion, sending jagged shards flying through the air, glinting like shooting stars. Emily gasped as one slashed near her cheek, the sting snapping her back into the moment. But as she instinctively ducked, her eyes caught something furious in the corner. Moving too quickly to comprehend, Emily saw a figure emerge from the darkness behind her mother. A tall man, cloaked in shadow, stepped forward, a malicious grin splitting his face. The moment his eyes locked onto Emily, her chest tightened, the breath hitching in her throat. "Ah, the prodigal daughter returns," he sneered. "Perfect timing, isn't it?" Who are you?" Emily managed to choke out. "I'm the real reason you're all tangled up in this mess. The one your father thought he could hide from you." His voice was low, dark, brimming with sinister intention. And then, as if flipping a switch, he waved his hand, and the very architecture of the room twisted. The walls faded, revealing a sprawling landscape that stretched endlessly. Emily felt a cold grip on her heart. This was not just a family curse. This was something much larger. "Everything you thought you knew about your family is a lie," he continued, stepping closer. "Your mother isn't just guarding secrets. She is a part of the pact. She is the darkness incarnate. And so are you." "No!" Emily reeled back, disbelief washing over her. "That can't be true." Mark stepped closer to her, his expression torn between anger and fear. "Emily, this isn't the time to doubt." "But Mom, how could you?" Emily's voice was thick, filled with betrayal. Her heart felt splintered, each piece tearing away as the truth began to bleed into her heart. In a swift motion, the cloaked figure revealed a small, glimmering object, a pendant that pulsed with dark energy. "This is what binds you, a symbol of your family's legacy, your mother's power, your power." "Power?" Emily echoed, each syllable tasting bitter. She felt the shadows swirl, urging her to accept it. But the moment felt surreal, too cruel to be real. Suddenly, an enormous fissure tore through the ground, separating Emily from her mother, who stood bathed in darkness, her face transforming once more. "Join me, Emily," her mother pleaded, desperation haunting her eyes. "We can wield this, control it." "No, you're not my mother." With a surge of resolve, Emily gripped Mark's arm. But just as they began to move, the shadow figure laughed, a sound dripping with malice. "What if I told you, Emily, that your mother isn't your true mother? What if you were never meant to be here?" The world shifted, and reality swirled away like mist. Time froze. A lump formed in Emily's throat, constricting her breath. She could only stare, petrified. "You belong to the darkness, child. You've always belonged." Emily's heart raced as the cloaked figure loomed before her. Shadows dancing at his fingertips. "You belong to the darkness," he repeated. And in that moment, something within her snapped. No! She wouldn't let the curse define her destiny. With a surge of defiance, she stepped forward. "Enough!" she shouted, the sound echoing in the void. The room trembled as her words filled the air. "I refuse to be part of this darkness." The shadows tightened around her mother, who looked torn between the love for her daughter and the power that held her captive. Mark's hand gripped Emily's tighter. "This is your moment. We can fight this together," he urged, his voice steadying her resolve. In that instant, Emily remembered the warmth of her family, the laughter around the dinner table, and the love that had once filled their home. It wasn't just shadows and curses. Memories of light washed over her. "I will break this bond." She thrust her hand toward the dark figure, summoning the deep light within her, a light they had neglected. The shadow shrieked as the energy exploded from her, illuminating the room. An intense wave of warmth swept through, causing the darkness to recoil. Emily felt the pull of the weightless glow fuse through her, intertwining with her mother's essence. "Remember who you are!" she yelled over the chaos, directing her voice toward her mother, who was caught in a battle of wills. "No!" her mother cried, and with every ounce of strength, she pushed back against the shadows surrounding her. "Emily, help me!" Hope sparked in her eyes as they locked gazes. In that fleeting moment, Emily reached out, fingers brushing against her mother's. "We can be free!" As their hands connected, a blinding light exploded from their grip, shattering the power that tethered her mother to the darkness. The air filled with a stunning brilliance, a purifying force dispersing the wicked tendrils. The cloaked figure howled, shadows swirling violently around him. "This isn't over," he roared as the light grew stronger, consuming him, dragging him into the depths. Then it was done. The shadows evaporated, leaving only a warm, golden glow. Emily and her mother collapsed against Mark, hearts racing. "We did it!" she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Her mother hugged her tightly, the bond restored. But a quiet tension lingered beneath the surface. The truth hung in the air like a heavy fog. "We're free, but at what cost?" Emily's voice trembled, and the shadow of doubt flickered in her mind. Had they truly escaped? Or was the darkness merely lying in wait? As the room settled, they stepped back, gazing at the remnants of the battle. The walls once again showed signs of wear, but now they felt lighter. Outside, the sun shone brightly, illuminating the path ahead, a path that held uncertainty. "Whatever comes next," Mark said, determination glimmering in his eyes. "We face it together." Emily nodded, wrapping her arms around her family. They had defeated the shadows today, but tomorrow still loomed with unanswered questions. Whatever challenges awaited, they would confront them as one. but with the horizons stretching beyond their reach, one question loomed in Emily's mind. How deep did their family's dark legacy run? Before the lingering doubt settled in her chest, a voice broke through. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss upcoming exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And don't wait another second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this conclusion. If you like stories about farmers, about everyday life on the farm, and want to know what really happens in the daily lives of the biggest farmers in the world, the hidden stories of the richest owners, and the secrets of the farm girls that the media doesn't reveal, check out our virtual book with the most famous and secret stories from the farm. Click on the first link in the video comments and get yours now.